This week on Buffering, we're talking about how the marketing landscape has moved beyond the experimental era of generative AI and how the winners of 2026 are not simply chatting with AI, but engineering integrated ecosystems. And Gabe, over the past few weeks, I've introduced you into a new AI tool, and I think we're both kind of losing sleep over this.
I feel like you've ruined my life because now I am legitimately losing sleep because I have nothing but ideas. And then as I start creating these ideas, then it keeps me up at night because I'm constantly thinking about little tweaks that I want to make to it. It's driving me insane. So yeah, thank you for ruining my life. I appreciate you.
It takes it back to like high school and even college where it's like, you're sitting around with friends and like, what would be a good business idea? And like, you kind of dream about it for a minute and then you move on. Now we're at a point where it's like, what would be a good business idea? What would be a good website app idea? And instead of moving on, you have the tools and the resources to execute on that vision now.
I haven't even told you this, but I've told you about a bunch of the stuff that I've been creating. But my kids were asking me about it the other day because they were like, what are you working on? What are you doing, Dad? Or I was telling my wife about it or something and they overheard the conversation. And then my son was like, well, I want to build an app too. And, I want to build, and then my daughter's like, well, I want to build an app as well. So yesterday afternoon, they were telling me about the apps that they want to build. My son actually had a pretty good idea. Unfortunately, it's a very crowded market. His idea was he wants to build an app for chess. To teach people to be better chess players. And I was like, all right, well, that's actually a pretty decent idea, but it's a good one. It is a good one. And I was like, all right, well, that's pretty decent. But I did some research and apparently it's a very, very crowded marketplace already. So there were some suggestions about how to make it unique, which he wasn't interested in after I started telling him that. My daughter just wants to build an app so she can teach her friends to do better cartwheels. That is her app idea.
Well, that's equally as important.
I did start to do some research after she said that idea to see, are there apps that are specifically focused on kids' fitness? Because there's lots of fitness apps for adults, but I was curious if there were ones that were gamified for teaching kids fitness. So, I mean, let's face it, kids are obsessed with screens. It's like, hey, how can we actually get some positive vibes going here by, having them do some physical activity around the screen as well. And apparently there are a few, but that's getting to be a little bit more of a crowded marketplace also.
Well, two comments on that. One is, I feel like with like Gemini Live, like I don't know if they have a video API. I think they do. There goes my night, but you could like integrate the video for like Gemini Live in and like trade this cartwheel, that kind of thing. So She might be onto something, Gabe. I won't touch that idea. I don't own any rights to that one, but
I wasn't sure how we were going to monetize that one to be fair, but I did appreciate that you came up with the idea. It was cute.
It's for pennies per day, Gabe. You can learn how to do a better cartwheel. It's marketing 101. But it's funny because I saw a comment on, is actually a post in the iOS programming subreddit this weekend. That's what I like to do on the weekend.
That's like the nerdiest thing you've ever said. And you've said some nerdy things on the podcast, but that might take
It's not even related to Excel. But anyways, on the iOS programming subreddit, and like someone posted and was like basically like, for the love of everything, stop making gym apps or stop making fitness apps, because with a lot of these upcoming vibe coders, like the first thing everyone does is like, I'm gonna make a fitness app, like a fitness coach. And that market is like not even like, talking about your kids, app, like the market for that is just insanely crowded. And it goes back to like marketing 101. It's why should I buy your product? What makes you different? What's the differentiator here? And nobody has figured that out yet. Like I see it on Twitter all the time now. It's like, here's the new UI UX for my new app. It's like a fitness app and it's got like your heartbeat and like your pace. And I'm like, why would I use that app? I've got 100 of those apps on my phone already. But that's my rant is if you're going to build an app, you've got to have a cool idea and hopefully something different or something that doesn't exist in the marketplace. Gabe, I don't know anything about the chess apps, but I do know, I don't know, but I can't imagine there's very many how to do a cartwheel apps. So your kids, that could be a great college fund.
So. Yeah. I don't think there's many cartwheel apps, so she may be onto something there. But again, I'm not really sure the monetization strategy and how many 5 and 6 year olds are going to be enthusiastic about paying for a how to do a cartwheel app. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the ROI on that kind of app, but on the
Exactly.
podcast today, I want to talk a little bit about what we're building with AI between Gabe and I. And then also, like, as we talk about what we're doing, think about what you could be doing, or, think about how you can be using AI now that these AI tools have evolved to the point they're at today. So I called this kind of like the 2026 reality, but throughout the years, Gabe and I have talked about AI on the podcast app. We talked about, the prompts and, how you can work with tools like Chat GPT, Gemini, Claude, so on, so on. But we've gotten to a point where the internet is very saturated with AI noise, AI slop. I'm very tired of reading everyone's AI LinkedIn post. Yes, we can tell. Yes, we know it's AI. Yes, your cringy story is super cringy to all of us. But what you end up is, was that too much of a rant there, Gabe? We'll keep it in. But what
No,
you end up
I don't
with
think
is,
there's anything. I don't think it's possible to do more of a rant on LinkedIn. You're fine.
I don't know who's listening to this podcast, but be careful. You end up with a high volume of low effort content, and AI has
Hmm.
largely enabled this, right? We can produce any content we want now. And I think it goes back to the early adopter of AI, back years ago when people were saying like, oh, like we're gonna be so far ahead of AI, and the early adopter. And I think that's largely evaporated, right? Like that's not an advantage for your business anymore. So you need to be moving into this era of the agentic AI, AI doing things for you autonomously. That human AI collaboration we talk about on the podcast so much. And then, of course, as we talk about often, shifting your focus from the prompt and more into the infrastructure and the architecture. And I came up with a pretty good term I'll use later on in the podcast. But that's what I think is happening here in 2026.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, Zach. And you're right. We moved definitely beyond prompts and, especially simple prompts. If you're being lazy and it's a simple prompt, you and all of your competitors can do that exact same prompt. What
Exactly.
is making things unique now is the ability to actually create with very detailed and specific prompts and a bit of technological, know-how, but there's just so many resources out there to be able to do this in a very, very effective and efficient way where like we're going to tell some of these stories, I think, as we go through the podcast today. But I had a situation where I was trying to create something, really struggling with how to create it, ended up on Claude. And within an hour, 90 minutes, I had something shouldn't even say mocked up, something created that's going to,
Live.
yeah, it was live. I mean, it's fully live. Actually, you know what? Shoot, let's just tell the story now. So I know we were going to tell some stories today, so it seems like a good opportunity to tell this one. Basically, what I've been trying to do was create originally I had this idea for more of like an app that would be baked into Copilot that would allow our sales team to have conversations with our customers about transitioning their go-to-market strategy. Zach, you and I have talked about this a number of times on the podcast, and we've had customers on talking about it, but we've been selling speed and price-based service tiers forever. We really want to get people out of doing that. And what I've found is a really good way to help people do that is to visualize what good looks like,
Hmm.
what a future could look like with a a different go-to-market strategy. So that's what I was trying to build, and I was kind of struggling with this, and then I was like, this is when I jumped kind of into the deep end of the pool with Claude specifically. Within 90 minutes, I had a fully functional website that I could send out to my colleagues that they could personalize for their conversations with customers and show them their previous strategy and what a new strategy could look like. I was just blown away and floored by the fact that within, an hour and a half and for basically $20, I could create this thing that was, I think, extremely beneficial to helping me and other folks that I work with a different type of conversation with a customer and the right conversation with a customer.
And that kind of leads into the conversation I wanted to have about the static asset, the template. I don't like templates. You can quickly corner yourself into a situation where you've lost your brand identity, your voice and tone. If you have competition in the market, you could look, exactly like them, which just becomes a problem. And I really think that in 2026, the speed at which you turn insights into marketing action is going to have a direct impact on your competitive health. How fast can you move as an organization compared to your competitors? And what we're talking about largely today is the marketing angle behind everything, content creation. There's also the tech stack, the behind the scenes, orchestration that's happening with AI. That's a whole separate conversation. But static assets, whether it's your website, your landing page, an email template, this is all disappearing.
Mhm.
We've seen different SaaS applications now, not just Claude, not just Codex, not just tools like this, but we've seen these different platforms that are able to create these experiences that are being assembled in real time. I don't have to go out and, you know, necessarily do a Figma mockup, although you can, and you can use AI to create said mockup if you need to.
Mhm.
But the time to value in a lot of this has been expedited. Gabe, the website you created, of course. I told you last week I was working on with some providers, and with the FCC broadband maps, you can only add like 3 providers at a time. And I was like, oh, what do I want to do more than that? And then I thought about that, and I was like, what if I want to do more than that? And within that afternoon, um, running in the background here, I had my own website integrated with Apple Maps that was showing me, data directly from the FCC's database, directly from the FCC's map, displayed where I could do many providers at a single time without that data leaving the FCC's database themselves. So there's
Mhm.
there's there's applications like that. I've also talked a little bit about just some web development projects as well, but I think we're also seeing the shift from the manual coding, the drag and drop builders, to AI tools that generate that production ready HTML, CSS. I've played with I think it was Wix, and I was pretty disappointed. To be fair, I didn't give it a good prompt to build a website, but it was one of those sites where I was like scrolling through. I was like, "Oh, this isn't bad." But then, like, the more I thought about it, I was like, "Oh, this isn't gonna work." Anyway,
Mm.
ended up doing it on my own, with a different AI tool. But again, that production ready HTML, CSS, not only can you use this on your website, but if you need to spin up a single version page, a landing page of sorts, you can use AI to hyper personalize these layouts. There's been use cases
Yes.
where I've done this based off behavior signal. So instead of going and creating, dozens of different website pages, spending weeks, doing this, I can essentially outline my plan or my vision and how I want to segment this data. Because in the background, you might have AI, orchestrating the customer journey and how people see your content. But again, using the AI platform of your choice to actually build that content, or to have that engine that knows your brand's voice and tone, your brand colors, your brand assets, things like that. Again, we're not just doing simple prompts into Chat GPT and saying, "Hey, write me an email or build me a landing page." But
Mhm.
again, taking in, the data, or, just taking in what you know about your brand, your objective, and having, AI help you with that. There's still this human AI, collaboration happening here. And then you as the marketer need to think through what that ultimate strategy looks like. Cool. I've got 6 different versions of this hyper personalized landing pages now for these different personas. How do we action this? How do we segment this? How do we bring this all together? And I think from a website development perspective, whether you're just doing landing pages in that example, or building full websites like in Gabe's example, um, the other tweet I see on Twitter often is like, "Oh, wake me up when AI can do this kind of design." And like all the comments, all the responses are like, "Bro, like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
here,
there.
and like
Yeah.
this content is able to be produced in real time today." So I think, Gabe, between what you've been doing here over the past few weeks, and um, I've done some different app development too, and I've been playing with app development since high school. The newest thing to me was integrating cloud platforms and solutions into the app, and AI has helped educate me on how to do that to an extent, and things like that. But I mean, the time to value on, like I said, just the website assets alone that we've talked about
Yeah.
is tremendous.
Well, the term you used there, hyper personalized, and I got all hyped up when you said
Oh
that,
yeah.
and that's exactly it. It is a way to be hyper personalized in the marketing that you're putting in front of folks, like you said, with very specific bespoke landing pages. And to your point about brand guidelines, those sorts of things, yeah, sure, you can upload your PowerPoint that has all your brand guidelines and all those sorts of colors, all that sort of stuff too, or you can just copy and paste your website into the probably fairly detailed prompt that you're writing to say, hey, I want to build a landing page that looks like this. And good news, AI is going to go out and look at all that information for you and put something together that aligns to the words that you're using on your website, the tone that you're using, all those sorts of things. So, it's gotten so much easier to do these things, as you said, Zach. It just the time to value piece is huge. Yeah, you mentioned that you've been playing around with app development since high school, but what would have taken you a month before, maybe 2 months, has probably been condensed to a handful of hours. And
It
so
used to
that,
be me on YouTube learning from, some random channel, and there's still an extent of that going on. But again, YouTube videos an hour long, you know.
yeah, exactly. Well, and even if you run into the other thing that's been really surprising to me as I've been playing with this more too is, AI is not necessarily going to get everything perfect the first time. I've run into bugs, I've run into errors, but as I run into errors, when you can just tell it, hey, I've got this error, can you go off and troubleshoot this for me? And it goes off and it's like, oh, you're right. There's a problem. I figured out what the issue was, and I went ahead and made all these changes and fixed it. That starts to really lean into that time to value piece too, Zach, because I don't know how to troubleshoot code, but I can see that there's an error, and I can be very specific about what that error is, and then kind of prompt it along to go fix that problem.
hmm The other place I see this happening is in email marketing, and I've got some experience, again from some of these apps I've run. But like, when you look at the emails in your inbox, I think Rivian sends very nice emails. I know I talk about them often,
I
but
was
I
going
think
to
they
say
send very
we
nice
did a whole
emails.
episode on a single Rivian email.
Yeah. And when you look at these emails, I see a lot of customers struggling to navigate MailChimp or struggling to have that same design eye that I may have, maybe overly critical sometimes, but in MailChimp, how do we design these emails that look, very professional, clean, polished, and not look like they were sent out of a 10.99 a month MailChimp plan or, something like that. And with MailChimp, you could bring in, HTML blocks. You can do this in a lot of different platforms, HubSpot as well. And that's one of the things I've done is, I've built out these emails. I'll bring in HTML boxes to do things that you can't, natively do in this solution. But of course, HTML is HTML. Bring that into the email, or you can just have, your AI model of choice build out that email. And the example I kind of used today, Gabe, with you was I said, well, hypothetically, if I was going to talk about an example on the podcast, what if buffering had a monthly newsletter kind of
hmm
thing? And what I did is I strategically built out, this big hypothetical plan about a personalized email that talked about the latest episodes. It features, the latest episodes, some past highlights, maybe just a little bit of information about who Gabe is, who myself is, and then how they can, make sure they never miss the next episode. And within, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, less than a minute ultimately, we had this production ready, email template that understands the buffering brand as Gabe and I built it. It pulled in our logo. I didn't upload that, Gabe, when I when I sent you that. I didn't upload the logo. It knows our brand colors, again, how we talk, the platforms we're on. But it also did this cool thing that I didn't ask for, but it had like little tags. So like, in the last episode, it said like we talked about Wi-Fi adoption, subscriber growth, go-to-market strategy. And I thought, oh man, that's a good idea because now, I'm thinking of like as the viewer, if I'm someone who's skimming this email or if I'm having an AI summary of said email, now I know exactly what these different
hmm
episodes talked about. But Gabe, that was the latest example of we have this, MailChimp ready template that I have no intentions on using right now, but as an example, we built this out. Again, we proved the concept here, and I didn't have to spend really any time building that.
It's yeah, that template came together really well. And it, like you said, Zach, it looked super professional. I'm totally with you on that quick summary of what's going on. So people can understand, hey, is this an episode that I want to listen to? So I'll pause here for a couple of things, Zach. So first of all, I would be curious to know if people would like a buffering newsletter, and if that is something that they would be interested in. Send Zach and I an email, send us a note on LinkedIn, let us know if that's something that you would be interested in. We started going down that path, Zach, a number of months ago. Actually, no, I guess it was a couple of years ago, where we were actually using AI to summarize the episodes and then put them into a blog post. And then we were posting those on, I think it was Beehive, if I remember correctly. And that was okay, but it took a fair amount of work. I like this because it's much more straightforward. And frankly, the AI has come a lot farther since then, where we could have that really quick summary and then links to the actual episode. So if you are interested in having a buffering newsletter or, a summary of the episode actually sent to you, let us know if that is something that you would be interested in. The second thing I want to say, just around ideas for the future, Zach and I were going back and forth with some other folks at Calix around, what we could be doing to frankly make the podcast better. What can we do to bring more people into the conversation? And the idea was thrown around of a mailbag, which we came up with some super nerdy names for. Zach, I can't remember what was yours? Was it packet
Oh
loss?
man, we went from packet drop
Packet
to
drop. That's what it was.
the download or something like that. But we've had a lot of good marketing names over the past few hours.
Yeah, there were some good ones for sure. Packet drop was pretty good. Anyway, so regardless of what we name it, I do really love the idea, and Zach and I both really like the idea of getting feedback from you all who are listening to the podcast on what ideas would you like us to discuss? Are there questions that you have? Are there ideas that you'd like us to be discussing more of? It's probably not Hot Rod or Crumble or Rivian, Zach. I think we probably talk about all three of those things enough. But same thing, if you have a question, if you have something that you would like to discuss, please send Zach or I a note on LinkedIn, and we're going to incorporate this into a mailbag going forward. Zach, I know we're actually working on in an email alias as well, so we can make this a bit easier going forward. But for now, if you have something that you're interested in talking about or a question that you have, send it to Zach or I on LinkedIn. Just hit us up with a message and we'll incorporate it into a future episode. I love the idea of, making this something that's a little bit more interactive versus, not that I don't love talking to you, Zach, but, Zach and I just talking to each other and talking to guests. So anyway, just wanted to caveat both of those things since we were kind of talking about email and newsletters and all of those sorts of things.
This has got to be the first podcast episode where I wasn't the one to bring up Hot Rod and Crumble. But yes, please send Gabe and I a message on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to, chat with you a little bit, share your feedback, and then of course, have that discussion on the podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gabe, what else are you working on? Anything fun that we can share on the podcast with AI? We've talked about
see.
landing pages, email templates. I gotta be honest, I think the email template one is my favorite because there's nothing worse, in my opinion, as a marketer than getting a really crummy email. It's just not a good reflection of your brand. And now, if you have the ability to have some design assistance while also hyper personalizing that email, I think that really changes the game. How are you going to stand out from your competition? Well, number one is you've got amazing marketing copy, or number one is, you have this amazing design and so on. But that's all I've got on the email landing page and website front.
I have a totally different topic that we can discuss here around another project that I've been working on.
You've got a lot of projects, man.
I do, man. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm a busy guy, but so to your point about Excel, Zach, you brought this up earlier. This is an area where I've been getting a little bit deeper into, using AI to create Excel models, which is something that I hadn't dipped my toe into a ton because for anybody who's listened to the podcast for a while, I'm super nerdy when it comes to Excel, and I'm very good at Excel. Like, it's something that I've been doing for a very long time, for really 25 years at this point. It's a tool that I use pretty much every day. And, you do anything every day for 25 years, you're going to get pretty good at it. So I'm pretty handy when it comes to Excel, but I'm also busy and I didn't want to have to rebuild this model. So I had a model that I needed to create, and I went and I gave a very long prompt to AI to create a model for me. And it got me thinking, because for a couple of reasons. One, if I were starting out my career now, would I learn how to use Excel the same way that I do now? Like, would I be as adept at it if I were just starting my career? And I think the answer to that is probably no. But it also got me thinking about, you know, I think the reason why I was able to give it a very detailed prompt that gave me very good output and a really excellent model at the end of the day was because I'm really good at Excel. So it's that like knowledge plus ability to now do this in a much more efficient way that I think is the unique thing that allows myself to be really efficient at my job, because I was able to bring all of that knowledge that I had. It's kind of like what you were talking about with the email stuff, Zach, or even the mobile app stuff. Like, you'd been doing mobile app development for a while, so AI helped you pour gasoline on that fire. This was the same thing with me with this Excel model. Because I knew how to use Excel and I knew what I wanted to ask it for, it was able to give me something that was really, really good at the end of the day.
We are going to have some insane Excel models by the end of the week, if not sooner. I have a feeling you turn Gabe loose with, AI
Oh.
model of choice, and not an endorsement of any specific AI model. Of course, follow your organization's policies, but I found Claude works very well with the Microsoft suite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I ChatGPT or Codex specifically, again, moving away from ChatGPT, Codex by OpenAI, I've been less than improved on. My next one to experiment with is going to be Gemini, and then follow that up with Llama. Apparently, Meta still makes AI models. I don't know if you knew that, Gabe, but they're still out there. And then finally, Apple Intelligence and um, total side note, now that I said it, I I was trying to ask Siri last night. I was like, when are the Emmys? Because I know they're coming up. And I was like, when are the Emmys? And Apple Intelligence couldn't even tell me that. It actually took me into Chat GPT, repeated the question, and I was like, okay, I gotta just start it on Gemini. But use the right AI model for what you're trying to build. They're
Mm-hmm.
all different. They all do different things very well. Um, Gabe, I feel like every time we talk about AI, we're either using a new tool or I remember a year ago, I think I told you that, oh yeah, I switched off of ChatGPT. Now I'm using Gemini as my daily
Mm-hmm.
driver. And that's changed again now with tools like Claude, so on, so on. So again, um, the models may be good at certain things, but to the comment Gabe made, early on in the podcast is you got to be careful how you use these things, because your competitors are probably using the same low effort prompts that you are. And I do say you are. I think we all have low effort prompts. We do, but keep in mind if we're doing marketing, if we're creating content, creating these, hyper personalized experiences, these basic prompts are not going to cut it. The further on you get, with the overall, AI orchestration between the data, your brand, and what you need from AI, that's where you can really start to get dangerous and automate some things.
Mm-hmm.
As we're having these conversations, Gabe, the last thing I thought of here was one of the things I do at the beginning of every month, and I'm sure it annoys Gabe because it annoys me too, but we update our podcast analytics. So for me, I log into 5 different websites and I pull data, and then I bother Gabe to update his LinkedIn numbers because, of course, I don't have access to Gabe's LinkedIn. But I was just thinking, like, man, it would be nice if we had like a tool that could orchestrate data from these 5, different sources and input them into, a dashboard or an Excel spreadsheet for all we need. But Gabe, more to come on that. I just had that idea in the podcast, and now it's we're
Now
gonna
we're gonna have
rebuild
to
in
go
that.
do it for sure. No,
Yeah.
that's a
Um,
that's a great one for sure.
yeah, so the last one here is kind of the roles, talent, and governance around AI here as well. So the prompt engineer, we alluded to this throughout the podcast today. It's transitional phase, right? The market doesn't really value the ability to talk to AI. I think anyone can talk to AI or have that AI conversation. But what it does value is the ability to design the environment, the ability to architect these different solutions. And that's where humans
I
come in.
remembered a joke I was going to make just a moment ago, Zach, and now I have to
Oh
say
yeah.
this. It's like you were talking about y- those really simple prompts, and I think my favorite Twitter joke is people doing the like, uh, go and create a competitor to Salesforce. Make no mistakes, right? Like that just makes me laugh every single time, and that's a low value that's a low value prompt. Obviously, whatever you get out of the end of that is not going to be beneficial. Anybody could do that.
I mean, even like joke aside, that type of thing is so vague. Go build me a 1 gigabit per second upgrade email. So what? You're gonna look.
Yeah.
It's just going to be the generic, vague, AI junk that we see on out there today that people are creating. Not to mention it again, but same with the LinkedIn post. Help me write a LinkedIn post talking about blah blah blah. I don't want to read about my colleagues on LinkedIn cringe. I really don't. But
You don't want to read about them on LinkedIn Lunatics? Come on, that's my favorite.
That's what it was. I was trying to think of the subreddit.
So
my favorite, two of my favorite Twitter memes right now or X memes are like, I just built my first app on localhost 8080. And I'm like, okay, that's just funny now. And then the other one is, I see this one quite often is, oh, I just built a Stripe competitor, no more like percent fees. And like, they're obviously joking kind of thing, but I'm like, man, there's so many people out there with, ideas that lack substance or, ideas that lack, dare I say knowledge, but,
well, yeah, that's
they're
the
good
thing,
jokes.
right? It's just because you have a general idea doesn't mean that you can actually go off and create something interesting. You have to bring, and this is where human and AI, the balance works really well. When you have the knowledge and the expertise, like to use my Excel example again, because I have really deep knowledge and I have built hundreds, if not more, models at this point in my life, I know how to ask AI very specific questions about how to create a good model. If I didn't have that knowledge, I would just say, create a financial model, make no mistakes, right? Like, and that's going to get me something that's very generic and is not helpful in any way.
Gabe GPT, I'm telling you. The last thing there though, again, going back to the human AI collaboration, I think we see this a lot with agentic AI as well, where you have the humans who need to come in, set the intent, set the strategy, the guardrails of what you want your, AI model to do and how you want it to operate within these limits. And then you can have the AI itself execute on those multi-step tasks. I just mentioned like the podcast idea that I that I had for the analytics. There's those multi-step tasks that can come in and shift the whole like doing marketing conversation into designing marketing intelligence. And that's the phrase I wanted to coin earlier on is like, as you think of what we're doing with AI and marketing, marketing intelligence, not to be confused with Apple intelligence, but marketing intelligence. Very, very holistic view there. And I guess one last thing on the emails here with this marketing intelligence concept or this marketing intelligence vibe, email marketers can really shift from sending the messages and doing those drag and drop templates to designing the behavioral triggers behind them. What's going to drive these campaigns? Not only what do they look like, but again, if we can expedite our time into making, a dozen email templates that align with this broader strategy, as opposed to Gabe, we see it every day. Here's my one upgrade email I'm going to send for the month or whatever, and all 10,000 subscribers are going to get the same email. Yikes. We need to get that marketing down to what we like to call a segment of one. And I've said this before, you can't market to Gabe and I, as similar as we may be on the podcast, but you can't market to us the same way. So you can't market to your 10,000 plus subscribers the same way. Gabe, how many times do I like send you like a picture of what a big provider has mailed me or like sent me on an email? And it's just the
sent me
same
this
piece of
text, I think,
content.
last week.
Yeah, for the past like I don't know how many years, it's been the same exact piece of content. The price has changed, but it's been the same piece of content. My neighbors get the same point or the same piece of content, and they're twice my age, and it's just chaos because that message isn't going to resonate, and now it's just become noise. It's just become mail I put in my trash can, emails I delete, social media ads I scroll past. But when I do get my attention, when something does catch my attention online, I send it to Gabe. I'm like, man, this is a great piece of marketing. Like, it's hyper personalized. It totally knows me, like the data behind this. But that's just me, the marketer, geeking out over good. I love good marketing.
Yeah, and just to top that piece up there, Zach, I was having this conversation in a customer meeting I was in a couple of weeks ago, and this gets to this whole conversation around, well, is AI going to steal our jobs? And, how is AI going to change the work that we do? Well, it's going to change the work that you do because the expectation is now going to be hyper personalized content and frankly, more output. If I saw it. I feel like we keep going back to tweets today because I saw a great one today that basically said something to the effect of, if you're not doing 15 to 20% of work, more work now than you were a year ago, something has gone terribly wrong and you are not taking advantage of all of the tools and resources that are available to you. And I was like, man, yes, agreed. Like I know I am way more efficient now and I'm getting way more higher quality work done than I was previously because of the tools and resources that are available to me. This should be the same thing for folks who are actively out there doing marketing to customers as well. Whereas you may have, maybe you ran 4 campaigns a year, to your point, Zach, and they were a little bit more generic previously. You might need to be running 40 or 50 going forward. And you can't run 40 or 50 campaigns using the exact same process that you did previously. It has to be by leveraging agentic AI, by leveraging the tools and resources that are available to us to make these processes more efficient. And again, it has to shift. You cannot continue to do things the same way, but you also can't you can't shift that and do 40 or 50 campaigns using the exact same processes as you used to do 4 or 5.
If you would have told me I need 50 marketing campaigns 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I'd have been like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna need to I would have panicked and then I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna sink some time into this. But Gabe, if you came to me tomorrow and was like, hey, I need 50 marketing campaigns, I'd be like, I'm on it. But
No
since we
problem.
opened this can, we have to talk about this, Gabe, because I know you know about this as well. But one of the things I've been doing, and of course, this is all powered by Engagement Cloud and our business insights team. But as they do the different NPS surveys and studying the relationship you have with your customers, we've been taking that data back and then having that in cloud. And then from there, you get the behavioral, the demographic, psychographic data. And of course, we don't want to use that for generic campaigns. We have all these data points we can now use to personalize it. So it's become a conversation of, okay, well, instead of 3 email campaigns, one for my detractors, one for my promoters, one for my passives, how can I turn this into 10 email campaigns, 20 email campaigns where I have my passive gamers, my passive, work from homers, my gaming detractors, my family detractors. And I mean, I can think of 6 emails right there that would have, I guess 9 emails that would have historically been 3 emails. And again,
Mm-hmm.
um, we're taking information we know about our customers, the data component, all of this kind of being orchestrated on the back end with AI, and then now communicating them, personalizing that content. We talk about personalization a lot, and I don't think you're going to personalize at scale by hand designing every single one of your emails. You can, but I hope you have nothing else going on.
That can have a lot of a life if you're trying to do that all by hand. It's just not feasible. Not feasible at all.
Yeah. Well, Gabe, let's wrap up the podcast here.
Let's do it.
In the future, I want to hear more about what you're building, and maybe we'll see some of that as well. But I think the big thing here is AI efficiency is no longer a differentiator. That early adopter with AI, conversation you had back in 2021, 2022. I don't know. I don't. It's been so long, Gabe. I can't remember when this kind of AI bubble first began. But that's your baseline now. That's not differentiating you. And I think there's also the component we talked about today of replacing manual asset development with generative, UI, UX, automating the production of landing pages, websites, different emails as well. I'm staying clear of the word template, but as you use AI, maybe you build, your own library internally with these AI generated assets that, of course, align with your brand and vision.
Yeah, it's
And
a
then
good call.
the last thing here is, as I mentioned this, moving from chatting with AI, no more, late night, conversations with Chat GPT or your AI model of choice, but to architecting, not so much that technical train change, but that strategic evolution of how you and your business are going to use AI. And to learn more about that strategic evolution, last week we did a fantastic episode with Bell. So I highly encourage everyone to go listen to that episode if you've missed that as well.
Yeah, it's a good call. That was a great episode and talked, for anybody who missed it, really got deep into business transformation. Val has a long history in business transformation. We talked about how, AI is another tool along this path of business transformation, but it was really great to hear his expertise and, hear how he's thinking about how businesses can take advantage of this. So great call out on that one, Zach. Definitely want to go back and listen to if you missed it.
Yeah. Well, Gabe, like I said, I'm excited to see what you build next. And I can't wait for the next late night text I get from Gabe. Gabe's an hour behind me, so I might be getting ready for bed and Gabe will have this great idea. Then I lose sleep over it
Yeah, I
too.
know.
So
I'm sorry, man. I always forget that you're an hour ahead, but you also stay up later than I do, so it's usually kind of a wash.
I was going to say at the end of the day, it just balances out. It's a write off. But thank you, everyone, for tuning into Buffering today. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more insights and updates, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn. And don't forget to message us with your feedback, questions, or future topic ideas you'd like us to discuss.